is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
What a fun night of games last night in the men's college basketball tournament. We now have our first set of only 8 games scheduled for Saturday. We're going to dig into FAU against Kansas State and UConn against Gonzaga, getting you ready for both those games by talking to Austan Kas, getting his read on both those, and getting you ready for what should be another fun day in the NCAA tournament. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire, joined here as mentioned by Austan Kas. Check him out on Twitter at Austan Kas. You can find his work over at numberFire.com. Austan, a thrilling set of games last night, a thrilling start to the tournament across the first 3 or 2.5 rounds now. So excited to dig in. How you doing today?
Yeah, doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited about tonight's games. We broke down the Friday games with John Rothstein earlier on. So if you want to get a read on the Alabama game tonight, the Houston game, all those are up in the Covering the Spread podcast feed and over on the FanDuel YouTube page. So go subscribe there to get those as they go up. We also, next week, baseball is back. We'll be talking about that beginning on Monday, talking futures with Tom Vecchio. We'll have an opening day preview on Wednesday. And of course, digging into more baseball as the year goes along as well. Austin, you've got a fun trip planned. So this is the last time we get to talk to you for a while. So I'm excited to talk about these games, but also bummed because I'll be without you for a pretty long time after this.
I know. I feel like you're just getting into soccer, so I hope this break doesn't ruin everything we've worked on.
I know. The EPL conspired against us by having their off weekend be this weekend, so it's all a conspiracy. But we'll get you back on, talk more. We'll talk some baseball. We'll talk some EPL once you're back from your vacation, but have a fun time. We're going to dig into all this here in just 1 second. As mentioned, though, make sure you're subscribed to check out the Friday preview with John Rothstein. Talked about some futures with him as well. Talked about the lay of the land at the top of the tournament. Also, later on today, I'll be going through NASCAR Circuit of the Americas, talking about the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series as well. If you want to find that, check out the timestamp in the episode description over on numberFire.com. Let's dig in now, though, to the NCAA men's tournament, Austin, and we'll talk about the Saturday games in just 1 second. But first, I want to start things off here by breaking down the futures market. So I want to give you a chance to talk about that if there are things to catch your eye right now. Looking at the markets over at FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it be championship markets, anything else, where are you seeing value right now, if anywhere, before we get tip on Friday night?
So I see a little bit of value in the national title market. I think Alabama is the best team in the field. They've definitely had that billing coming in, and they've played like it through 2 games, but I think they might be a little overvalued right now. So in an effort to take advantage of that, I like rolling the dice on Creighton and San Diego State to win it all. Creighton was plus 950, and then San Diego State was plus 4,000. So it looks like maybe Creighton's dropped to 850, but
yeah.
Obviously, Bama's going to be the U-turtle for either of those two to get out of the South. San Diego State is going to play them tonight, 7.5-point dog. But outside of Bama, there's really no one else on the left side of the bracket that the Aztecs or Blue Jays would be a sizable underdog against. If they can find a way to get past Alabama, they'll see either Kansas State or Florida Atlantic in the Final Four and may be favored in that game, regardless of which of those two it is. And then, of course, they'd have to win that game and then beat a really good team in the title game. But once it came down to one game, anything can happen. Creighton's price is so much shorter because their next game isn't Bama. They play Princeton. They're 10.5-point favorites. San Diego State's plus 4,000 number will shorten drastically if they can get the win tonight. So it would give you a chance to cash out at a profit prior to the Elite Eight if you wanted to. And I think they have a real shot to beat the Tide despite being a 7.5-point dog. I think the Aztecs' pace, which is just 263rd, could make things a little uncomfortable for Alabama. Alabama's 5th in pace, and obviously San Diego State's got their work cut out for them, but I think they've got a shot tonight, maybe a little better shot than what that 7.5-point spread indicates.
Yeah, 40-1 is the number on San Diego State right now, entering this game for tonight. Creighton is plus 850, as you alluded to. If you're betting one of those, Austin, do you have a preference between Creighton and San Diego State?
I think I'd take San Diego State.
Yeah.
Creighton is definitely more tempting because they're probably going to be in the Elite Eight, and San Diego State could get just thumped tonight. But
Sure.
that plus 4,000 that's a really big number, that 40-1. So I'm really intrigued by that.
And it's also interesting too because their money line to beat Duke or to beat Alabama tonight is 260. So obviously they'd have to win in that the Elite Eight matchup, and they'd have to continue going on there. But plus 260 and compare that to 40-1, that's not too bad. Okay, so checking out Creighton at plus 850, checking out San Diego State potentially to win it all based on the numbers, based on the path, and kind of taking a route to take advantage of the fact that Alabama, despite Austin thinking of the best team in the nation right now, might be a little bit overvalued in what has been a volatile, very parity-driven tournament thus far. Let's shift focus now and talk about the Saturday games in the Elite Eight. We'll start things off with the first one. That is FAU against Kansas State. Kansas State right now in that game is a 1.5-point favorite, so a very tight spread there. Total is 144.5. Austin, looking into this game, Kansas State against FAU, what stands out to you there?
So I'm on Florida Atlantic to win. Just earlier this morning, this line was plus 2.5, and the money line was plus 112. So things are trending their way. Florida Atlantic's a Cinderella story by their seed and just name recognition, but this isn't completely out of nowhere. They're a really good team. They're 34-3 right now. They came into the big dance in the top 40 in both adjusted offense and defense per KenPom. So they definitely checked a few boxes as a team that could make a run. Something that makes them really dangerous is that they shoot the three really well, and they shoot a lot of them. They're 35th in the nation in three-point attempt rate, and they're 55th in made three-point percentage. So we kind of saw that play out against Tennessee. The Owls defense was good enough to keep them in the game until they got hot from three, which happened in the second half and basically won the game for them. Our model here at numberFire has Florida Atlantic winning 55.4% of the time. KenPom is mostly in line with us. They have Florida Atlantic 4 spots ahead of Kent State. So I think the Owls do it again and really get to the Final Four and make this a really fun story.
So you've got numberFire pointing towards FAU. KenPom, as you mentioned, has FAU slightly ahead of Kansas State as well. Bart Torvik has them effectively the same. It's 23 for Kansas State, 25 for FAU. So a lot of convergence of stuff here. But as you mentioned, this number has moved. The money line for FAU is now plus 106. Are you backing off if that gets to even money? You know, kind of where's the point of no return for you if this number continues to shift towards FAU?
That's a great question. I think it's probably getting really close to that point. If it gets to even money, I'd probably stay away. When I saw the spread was at 2.5 this morning, I thought, wow, should I pounce? And then an hour later, I'm thinking I should have pounced. Yeah. So, So that's really interesting. I actually think it's probably going to end up moving closer to even money on the money line. So, yeah, this is a really interesting game.
Okay, so shop around, see what number you can get on FAU, but plus 106 is where Austin is going on their money line against Kansas State right now. Other game on Saturday night is UConn against Gonzaga. This one is shifting towards UConn. UConn now a 2.5-point favorite. Total in this game is 153.5. So we saw the magic from Gonzaga last night in that win over UCLA. This one should be fun, Austin. How do you see things playing out here?
Yeah, so this is just like Florida Atlantic. This line's moving toward UConn. As you said, it was just 1.5 earlier this morning. So I'm on UConn. We talked prior to the tournament about how loaded this West region was, and that was on full display last night. That was the quality of a game that could have been a national title game. Two of the best teams slugging it out. I think UConn Gonzaga is going to basically be the same thing. Our metrics have UConn 4th in the country and Gonzaga 6th. So UCLA was 3rd for us. So if Gonzaga gets to the Final Four, then they absolutely earned that ticket. I like UConn on the money line, which was minus 132 this morning. Looks like it's minus 130 now. UConn's just the better team. Both sides are elite on offense. Per KenPom, the Zags are 1st and the Huskies are 3rd. But UConn is much better defensively. UConn ranks 13th on D, and the Zags are just 73rd. While Gonzaga's had a really tough path so far in the tourney, UConn has too. Arkansas and St. Mary's are both top 20 teams. for Bart Torvik, and UConn thrashed them by a combined 38 points. They're obviously playing very, very well right now, and that form extends much longer than the tournament. Over the last 17 games, they've lost 4 times, but those 4 losses were by a total of 9 points. None of them were by more than 3 points. Bart Torvik has UConn winning 61% of the time, which comes out to a minus 156 money line. So by his numbers, there's really good value on this current money line. And our model here at numberFire is basically right in line with this minus 130 price, but I lean a little more toward what Bart Torvik has, and I'm bullish on UConn to win tomorrow.
Yeah, wisdom of the crowd situation here, where if numberFire is in line and another intelligent place is also on UConn a bit more favorably, that could hint that there is value in UConn at minus 130, that money line right now. What about the bigger picture for UConn? Because they've locked themselves into the Elite Eight. Right now, they are plus 420 to win it all. Obviously, you mentioned you like Creighton more, you like San Diego State more, but do you consider putting some on UConn plus 420 to win the whole tournament, given how well they're playing? Or do you just want to stick with the money line for this individual game and then go from there?
I think I'd probably just stick to this game solely because just for them to get to the title game, they're probably going to have to beat 2 very good teams, Gonzaga and Houston maybe, or Texas, who either one of them are fantastic teams. So just because their path is so much harder than what it would be for the teams on the left side, assuming they can get past Bama.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough spot for sure, but it's going to be a fun one as always, and especially looking forward to that UConn-Gonzaga game tonight. I have Gonzaga in the Final Four, so kind of need that. Wasn't super optimistic at halftime last night, so maybe kind of living on borrowed time already, but we'll see how things play out there. That is, again, Austan Kas. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Austan Kas. You can find his work over at numberFire.com, talking EPL once it's back, talking college basketball, and much more. Austan, we appreciate the time. Have fun on your vacation. We'll talk to you again here on the show once you are back.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Alrighty. Big thank you once again to Austan, not just for today, but also for stopping by, talking EPL with us, talking college basketball with us. It has been a blast for sure. We're going to dig into NASCAR at Circuit of the Americas here in just 1 second, breaking down Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series as well. But speaking of Xfinity, whether your bracket is busted, still alive, or you're just looking for another way to get involved in March Madness, FanDuel has you covered. That's why FanDuel and Xfinity Mobile are partnering to give you a chance to win a share of $10,000 for each of the Elite Eight, Final Four, and National Championship game. So $30,000 in total cash prizing. All you have to do is answer prop pick'em questions around in-game action, inclusive of Xfinity Mobile-themed questions. And the best part is it's free to play. Fans that answer the most questions correctly win a share of $10,000 grand prize for that round's contest. The first round of this contest locks on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So head over to FanDuel now to get in on the action. To enter, go to FanDuel.com/free/contest/Xfinity Mobile Pick'em Roll. Again, FanDuel.com/free/contest/Xfinity Mobile Pick'em Roll. No purchase necessary. Age and location restrictions apply. Void or prohibited. See full terms at FanDuel.com. Xfinity Mobile has not sponsored or offered this promotion in any way. Let's dig in now to NASCAR at the Circuit of the Americas, which is where they are for this weekend. It's the first road course race of this year in 2023 for the NASCAR Cup Series, and a real banger of a field for this weekend. You've got Jimmy Johnson, 7-time Cup Series champion, back. You've got Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button, a couple Formula One champions, Connor Daly from IndyCar here as well. It's a really fun field. Now, looking at the betting odds this week, I do not see any value in Johnson, Räikkönen, Button, anyone like that. But there are a good number of top 10s I like for this week. So I want to dig into those and outline my favorites for NASCAR at Circuit of the Americas. The big one to me, my favorite bet of this weekend on the Cup Series side, is Michael McDowell. He is plus 165 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. I have McDowell 49% to finish inside the top 10 versus 38% implied. So again, plus 165, Michael McDowell, top 10. McDowell has a top 10 in 4 out of 6 road course races during the next-gen era. He had a top 10 average running position in one of the races he did not finish inside the top 10. And I think that this makes a lot of sense. McDowell is a road racer. He used to teach guys how to road race, like William Byron learned how to road race from Michael McDowell. And with the next gen era, you've got the gap in equipment between McDowell and the top guys being smaller than what it used to be in the past. So you put him in relatively equal equipment, and his road course acumen can finally shine. So we saw that last year. I think we can see it once again this year. So my favorite bet this weekend, Michael McDowell, top 10, plus 165 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right behind him is Kevin Harvick, plus 175. I show value there too, 40% for me versus 36% implied. Harvick was inside the top 10 in 3 out of 6 road course races last year. In 2 of the others, he was 11th and 12th. The 11th place run came here at COTA, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Harvick is a wily veteran, keep his tires underneath him, not going to burn those things up early on in the run. So I think anecdotally, it makes sense that Harvick would do well. We saw it last year. My numbers like him too. Now, the one counterpoint with Harvick is that he didn't qualify all that well last year on road courses. So there's a pretty decent chance that this number lengthens post-qualifying Saturday. So I think that if you want to hold off, maybe bet Harvick later on, I can see the logic behind that. So I think Harvick's undervalued, but if you want to bet him later on, that is fair. Plus 175 right now, though, is a value for me. Next one up for me is Ty Gibbs. He's down at plus 430 over at FanDuel Sportsbook to finish inside the top 10. And I know the Toyotas were awful last year on road course. I know that, but my model knows that too. The model I'm using in trying to formulate the equipment prior for Gibbs does not look at road courses prior to 2021 because that was a different car. So why would it care? We can get a large sample by looking at just 2022 data. The 2022 data says that Toyota sucked on road courses. It knows that. But I think he's better than this number implies. Gives a very good road course race in the Xfinity Series, won his first career race there at Daytona. He also had 2 other wins. One of them came competing against AJ Allmendinger. One came against Kyle Larson at Road America. So he was racing against Cup Series talent, and he was beating them pretty often. So he is a talent on this track type. It's also possible Toyota's gotten better in the offseason at road courses. I'm not banking on it, but it's definitely possible. I have Gibbs at 24% to finish inside the top 10. So I'm not super high on him, but his implied odds are 19%. So it could bite me. I've been on Gibbs plenty this year, but I was on him last week and he came through there. So I think that Ty Gibbs plus 430 for a top 10 is a good value for what I'm seeing. The final one I want to highlight here for the Cup Series is Ryan Preece, 7-1 in the top 10. He was not elite on road courses with his old team, JTG Doherty Racing, but he also was not hideous by any means. He did get a top 10 in 2021, and now he's in better equipment. Stewart-Haas Racing, talked about Harvick earlier on, but they've also got Chase Briscoe, who ran well on road courses last year. Cole Custer in this car was pretty good as well. So I'm not overly confident in Preece in terms of talent, but when I take what he did at JTG Doherty and put it in a Stewart-Haas Racing car, I get Preece's top 10 odds at 18.3%. His implied odds are 12.5%. It's a pretty decent gap. So I think Preece makes a lot of sense. That's a gap I'm willing to bet on. So I will take Preece 7-1 to finish inside the top 10. So for the Cup Series, just top 10s for me for right now. But I like Michael McDowell plus 165, Kevin Harvick plus 175, Ty Gibbs at plus 430, and then Ryan Preece at 7-1. Let's shift focus now and talk about the Xfinity Series out at COTA. Just outrights right now at FanDuel Sportsbook for Xfinity. We can find some value there based on my numbers. And it's actually the guy that Preece replaced at Stewart-Haas Racing. I like Cole Custer. He's 8-1 to win this race. Custer's odds for me, 13.4%. His implied odds, 8-1, are 11.1%. Again, as I talked about with Preece, I think that, Custer was pretty good on road courses last year. The problem was he didn't always translate that into good finishes, but he had speed based on what we saw. Now, it is tough to top AJ Allmendinger. It's tough to top William Byron, Ty Gibbs, all in this field for the Xfinity Series, but that's accounted for in the odds. I think Custer is the best outright bet, and I think that I want to get in on that at 8-1. I also do not mind from a longer shot perspective, Brandon Jones. Jones is down to 80-1 to win this race. I've got Jones at 2.9% to win, so a pretty big gap between me and the fields, or me and the sports books here on Brandon Jones. Jones, First road course race with Junior Motorsports, previous with Joe Gibbs Racing. So that is probably an equipment downgrade on a road course, but I also think a lot of Junior Motorsports struggles on road courses is the drivers. Josh Berry's a short track kind of guy. Sam Mayer, super young, tough to expect him to be great on a road course. Noah Gragson had upside on road courses, but did wreck quite a bit. So I don't think the equipment is as bad as the results have been for Junior Motorsports. And Jones, I think, proved at Joe Gibbs that he can get the job done here. So I think that Jones is a better bet in a top 5 market if you can find him. The problem is that everyone else found him too. He went from plus 750 top 5. He's now plus 420 or 450, I believe. So that number shortened a lot. I would prefer to find him there, but doesn't seem like we can. So I think that Jones, a better bet for a top 5, but based on where the odds are right now, 80-1 to win, that's a value for me too. So Brandon Jones, a guy I am interested in for this weekend. Finally, if you're looking at other top 5s, William Hill has us up right now. Alex LeBay is 16-1. LeBay filling in for Josh Williams, suspended this weekend, but LeBay, driving for the same team, has shown upside at road courses. I have him at 11.4% to finish inside the top 5. So 16-1, a very good number there. So LeBay top 5, 16-1 at Will Hill. But if you're betting at just FanDuel, Brandon Jones 80-1 or Cole Custer 8-1 to win that one. In the Truck Series, I like 2 outrights. And if you've listened to previous discussions around the Truck Series, you know I have a hard time getting to Kyle Busch at his typical numbers because he's amazing. Sportsbooks know that. Sportsbooks know you want to bet Kyle Busch, so they want to give super short odds. He's plus 150 to win at Circuit of the Americas, but that's actually a value based on my numbers. I've got Busch at 45% to win on Saturday. The implied odds of plus 150 are 40%, so I don't ever get this chance to bet Kyle Busch in a lower series. I get it here, and I'm going to take that. He won at Sonoma last year for Kyle Busch Motorsports, obviously. Driving for them once again. Now a Chevy, whereas he was in a Toyota, but I don't think that matters a ton based on the speed we've seen the KBM trucks have so far this year. So Kyle Busch plus 150, I will take advantage of actually getting value on Busch for the first time ever since I've actually had this Truck Series model. So that is a nice little relief where I don't have to be just clenching the entire race, worried that Kyle Busch will ruin my bets. The other outright I like is also a Cup Series driver. That's Ross Chastain down at 12-1. Now, Chastain's not in as good of equipment as Kyle Busch is. Chastain driving for Nice Motorsports, and they're not as good as a KBM truck, but it's also not hideous. And whereas the market, I think, based on where they have Chastain, they're kind of saying that the Nice equipment sucks because Chastain is a very good road racer, won at this exact course in the Cup Series last year. Chastain, driving for Nice Motorsports last year, ran at Sonoma. He had a 4th place average running position. He finished 4th in that race behind Kyle Busch. He was very good there in this same truck. Carson Hocevar, his teammates, had 3 really good runs on road courses last year. One of them was with a broken foot at Sonoma, still ran very well there. So Nice's equipment is good enough for Chastain to let his talent shine through, and I don't think that the sports books are saying that's the case. I've got Chastain at 17% to win versus 7.7% implied, so it's a very big gap. Likely means I'm wrong because Chastain opened at 12-1 elsewhere. He is shortened to 10-1 in those other spots. Some movement in my favor, but not a ton. Likely means I am too high on Chastain, but there's a big gap for me to be too high on him and still be above where the implied odds are. So I think the biggest indicator for me that sportsbooks are too low on Chastain is that his odds at FanDuel right now are the exact same as Carson Hocevar's in the exact same equipment. Why is that? Ross Chastain is a better road racer right now than Carson Hocevar is. So I think that's a good indicator that they are underselling Chastain right now. So Ross Chastain, 12-1 to win in the Truck Series, a good bet as well. I also do like a lot of top 5 bets here. Chastain is plus 140 at William Hill for a top 5. I've got value on that. Other top 5s I like are Parker Kligerman plus 225, Ty Majeski plus 225, Stuart Friesen and Grant Enfinger, both 4-1. I think that what we're seeing here is that the top 5 markets are tied to the outright markets, and the outright markets are pushed longer because of Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, and Ross Chastain being in this field. So they're not all going to occupy all top 5 spots. So to me, I think that gives a lot of value here to take advantage of bets. Again, Kligerman plus 225, Majeski plus 225, Stuart Friesen, Grant Enfinger 4-1, and Chastain plus 140 for a top 5 in the Truck Series. So recap for across all 3 series. Cup Series, top 10s, I like McDowell plus 165, Harvick plus 175, Gibbs plus 430, and Priest 7-1. In Xfinity, I like Cole Custer to win 8-1, Brandon Jones to win 80-1, and then Alex LeBay top 5 at plus 1,600. And then in trucks, Kyle Busch to win plus 150, Chastain to win 12-1, and then the other top 5 markets mentioned earlier on. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Next week, gonna be loaded. Baseball with Tom Vecchio on Monday. We'll talk to Dr. Ed Feng, getting his read on the men's Final Four on Tuesday. Got some women's talk coming up later on the week. And of course, Major League Baseball opening day just around the corner. So it's going to be a fantastic stretch. Big thank you once again to Austan Kas for swinging by, breaking down his thoughts on the Elite 8 games on Saturday. Find Austin on Twitter at Austan Kas. And again, if you want to find our preview of the Friday games, check those out in the Covering the Spread podcast feed and on the FanDuel YouTube page with John Rothstein. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets across the Sweet 16 tonight, the Elite 8 this weekend, and all other sporting events. Should be a fun weekend for sure. We'll talk to you once again on Monday to break down some MLB futures. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.